We're joined by Texas Governor and Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry. Nice to have you with us, sir.
It's an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Governor, your position on Social Security continues to be an issue. You maintain that it is a Ponzi scheme, as you say, and you want states to play a bigger role. Now, what do you say to seniors who depend on this, and what exactly would your reforms be?
I would tell anyone who's on Social Security today or approaching Social Security, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. We have a solemn oath to you to make sure that those dollars are there, and they are there, until you take your last breath on this earth, and we hope it's a long, long time until that happens. But those individuals have absolutely no worries that the program that has historically been in place will be in place for them. You know, what is troublesome is that some on the Republican side and Democrats have historically tried to scare our seniors with, they're going to take your Social Security away. Two things. Number one, that is very immature from my perspective. Americans won't answer. They want straight-speaking, truth-telling individuals working for them. And that's what I've done. Kids know, 25, 36-year-old, they know that Social Security, if they keep paying into the program that we've got today, it would make Bernie Madoff blush. This is a Ponzi scheme for them. So how are we going to transform that program for those that are in their mid-careers or give options for those young people with public opportunities to take their accounts into a private account or leave them in a public account? Let it be their choice, though. Do we stagger the age upward of when people will become eligible for Social Security? All of those will make some substantial changes in a positive way so that that program will be in place when those young people retire. Now let me speak to the issue that you asked about on the states. And I do think that the states could play a more active role in dealing with Social Security for their state employees and or their retirees. Obviously not for the general population. In my book, I talked about 3 counties in Texas that had taken advantage of opting out of Social Security, and today, Brazoria, Matagorda, and Galveston County, they all see substantially higher payments to their retirees than had they stayed in the Social Security program.
In the last debate on Fox, Governor Mitt Romney said that Obamacare is not the same as Romneycare. And he tells Newsmax, as a matter of fact, that states have rights to do things that the federal government does not. What's your take on all of this?
Well, he's absolutely correct in the sense that states should be given more freedom to decide issues that affect their citizens, whether it's health care or education or transportation infrastructure for that matter. But here's the difference. In his book, he wrote that Obamacare was right for the rest of this country. Or Romneycare was right for the rest of this country. And it's hard to tell the difference between Romneycare and Obamacare because they are individual mandates. They require people to buy insurance. Beacon Hill Institute in Massachusetts did a study just within the last 2 weeks that said that Romneycare cost the people of Massachusetts 18,000 jobs and over $4 billion worth of additional cost. Then when you add the Medicaid, Medicare cost that all of us are having to pay because of that, it's upwards of $8 billion of cost. So in his book he said this was good and I want to do what I did for Massachusetts for the rest of the country. Now he took that line out of his paperback that's in publication today. So again, another one of those flip-flops from the governor of Massachusetts when he finds that although something he believed in strongly is not acceptable in the political arena in today's presidential race, he tries to change his tune. But the fact is, Obamacare was patterned after Romneycare. They're both bad for America.
As president, would you repeal Obamacare?
Hopefully the Supreme Court will find it unconstitutional before that happens, but yes, getting rid of Obamacare I think is the highest calling of the next President of the United States, whether it's with an executive order or then working with Congress to completely wipe it out. Then transition into a program where the states play a substantially greater role, where Medicaid is block granted back to the states and they have the ability to come up with various innovative ways with menus of ideas of how to deliver health care to the people of their states. That's the way to not only get the budgetary side of this under control, but actually to deliver health care to more people in more thoughtful and more innovative ways.
All right, next issue. You say this about those who oppose giving in-state tuition to the children of illegal aliens. I don't think you have a heart. In August, a Rasmussen poll showed 81%, more than 8 out of 10 voters, oppose giving breaks to illegal aliens. Can you explain why you believe so strongly in this?
Well, I probably chose a poor word to explain that. For people who don't want their state to be giving tuition to illegal aliens, illegal immigrants in this country, that's their call, and I respect that. And I was, I was probably a bit over-passionate by using that word, and it was inappropriate. But here's what I do believe, that it is a state's sovereign right to decide that issue for themselves. In Texas in 2001, we had, of the 181 members of the legislature, only 4 voted against this piece of legislation because it wasn't about immigration, it was about education. The bigger issue is that the federal government has failed in its constitutional duty to secure our borders. We wouldn't be having these conversations today, whether it was about in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, or whether it was the Arizona law, or whether it's voter ID, which we passed in Texas, or sanctuary cities and the banning of those, which we tried to do in Texas. None of those would come up if the federal government had simply done its job through the years to secure our borders. And we know how to do it. Nobody has dealt with this issue more than I have. Texas governor, a border governor, you have to deal with these issues. You can't just talk about them and say, oh, let's build a wall from Brownsville to El Paso and that will take care of it. We have to live with reality, and the reality is this. You can have strategic fencing in the metropolitan areas, you can put boots on the ground, aviation assets in the air, and you can secure that border. The federal government has to be a participant, though. They have to be the main defender of our border, as they're constitutionally required to do. And as the President of the United States, I will assure you one thing. I will secure that border. And a lot of these issues that we're having to deal with, dealing with the great number of people that are in this country illegally, will go away.
But Governor, do you oppose building a fence?
I oppose building a fence from Brownsville to El Paso and to Tijuana because of the cost that's involved, because of the time that's involved, and because of the great amount of private property rights that would be trampled upon to do that. Now, in the metropolitan areas where the fencing actually can play a positive role, absolutely, because we're using that type of fencing today, and it is having a negative effect on the immigration issue. But you have to have boots on the ground. I cannot overstress how important it is to have those law enforcement presence that can immediately move to an area where you're seeing activity because you've got the aviation assets in the air. That's how you secure the border. Having an obstacle without observation is no obstacle at all. So just the idea of building a fence and saying that'll take care of it, let's just build a fence, it's never worked in the history of mankind. Use strategic fencing, absolutely, it has a role. Use that in the places that it makes sense, but the way you really secure that border is to have the strategic fencing, you have the boots on the ground, you have the aviation assets in the air, looking down, real-time information. That's how you secure that border.
Should illegals have a right to a driver's license?
No. As a matter of fact, I vetoed a bill such as that back over the last years in Texas. So a driver's license is a earned right, and if you're in this country illegally, you don't have that right.
Okay, another topic. Google was the sponsor of a recent Fox debate. There are hearings now before Congress looking into whether Google is too powerful. 80% of all web searches in the U.S. go through Google. As president, would you ask the Justice Department to consider an antitrust action to ensure they don't engage in monopolistic practices?
Well, obviously, we have laws against monopolies, and I don't have a problem with us having oversight, making sure that there aren't monopolistic concepts and ideas and actions going on in this country. But I really believe in the free market as well. And one of the problems that we've got in this country is government is sticking their nose into way too many areas that frankly, the private sector will work its way through and the marketplace will work its way through. The Justice Department, for instance, they're going after Gibson guitars in a way that I will consider to be very anti-free market. We've got the...
Was that political, do you think?
I don't know whether it's political or not. I know it's wrong. And just because something's done doesn't necessarily mean it's political, but it's sure wrong. The EPA, another out-of-control, regulatory crazy agency that is putting our energy independence in jeopardy in this country. There's agency after agency in Washington, D.C., particularly under this administration, that have basically been loosed to go to war against job creators in this country. And that's one of the things as a president that I will do. We will pull back all these regulations and rein in these agencies that are running loose herd over the private citizens and the job creators in this country today.
A couple more financial matters. The Obama administration is now taking action against S&P for their ratings on CDO bonds from 2007. They are the only ones being singled out. Fitch, Moody's, a pass. What do you think of this?
That one may be political and wrong. That one may have both characteristics of an administration who is not afraid to try to intimidate those out there. For instance, the Securities Exchange Commission sent a query into companies wanting to know if they were investing in companies that were involved with hydraulic fracturing. Hydraulic fracturing is a technique used in the oil and gas industry to open up those big shale formations so that we could develop those massive natural gas fields that have been found over the last decade in this country, up in Pennsylvania, up in the central northern part of our country, in parts of Texas and Louisiana. Huge energy sources. What would the SEC be doing shooting a missile across the bow of these companies, asking them these questions about hydraulic fracturing? Well, we know what that is. It's, again, this administration trying to intimidate the private sector, trying to implement their philosophy. I think this administration has an energy policy.
Do you think Congress should investigate to see if this is payback for S&P downgrading the national credit rating?
Well, again, I think this is a politically driven issue, and that is, you can only come to that conclusion. I said something just prior. I said this administration does have an energy policy. It has. And it is to make our country more dependent upon foreign sources of oil. That is bad for America economically, and it's bad for America strategically.
Energy prices would necessarily skyrocket. Famous quote of President Obama.
I think that is his plan, is for energy prices to skyrocket so that America looks more like Europe. I don't want America to look more like Europe.
You're a man of faith. The Reverend Franklin Graham has openly complained that President Obama is hostile to Christianity. Reverend Graham was even banned from a Pentagon prayer breakfast. Now, are you worried that President Obama's actions toward Christians are discriminatory? At the same time, he's quite open toward Muslims?
Right. Well, I think the President of the United States should be a person of faith and not be afraid to stand up and talk about the values that they believe in their heart. But at the same time, they have to be open to all practices of faith. And certainly, I've done that as the governor of Texas. I would do that as the President of the United States as well. But not shying away from what I believe in my heart and the values, those Judeo-Christian values that this country was based upon, are still very important to the vast majority of the people of this country. They want to see those exhibited both in work and in deed.
As President, would you support Israel if it struck at Iran for building up its nuclear weapons arsenal?
We need to be standing with our longtime ally, the longest serving democracy in the Middle East, every day. Israel's not perfect, but they are our friend. And we should send message after message that if you attack Israel, you attack America. And that would be a message that is very clear from my administration. Our foreign policy today with this current administration is very muddled. Our allies don't know whether we're going to be standing with them or not. You look at Taiwan, who's requested the newest generation of F-16, and we've refused. This administration, this president directly interceded and said, no, we'll sell you the old model, but not the new one. Taiwan, one of our oldest allies in a part of the world where China continues to be very aggressive. In that area of the world, we need to have our allies fully armed, fully well capable of defending themselves and our interest, whether it's in Pakistan and Afghanistan in that Indian region. Again, India had made the request for weaponry that was high-tech, and we refused to help a longtime ally with them. And we need to clearly send the message, we're going to be there for our allies in those regions of the world. India had to go to France to buy the fighters that they needed. Bad message, and we need our allies to know we're going to be there with them, whether it's Israel, whether it's India, whether it's Japan, Taiwan. We need to be there every day.
Texas Governor and Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry, thanks so much. Safe travels and good luck on the campaign trail.
Godspeed.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.